Hi everyone, this is Wrath here, and I just wanted to shoot a video about escalation dungeons and more of their mechanics this season. So, if you're running any escalation dungeons, you're probably wondering why am I getting kicked out? Um, and I'm going to tell you why in this video. It's going to be the dungeons you don't have unlocked. So, this one here, Shifting City, this is in Karuyisu, and then we have Submerged Ruins. No, we have Betrayed Tome. This one is locked behind the Festering Dark. So just to go over all the strongholds that I recommend you do so you can avoid this, starting with the worst, Festering Dark. Do not run Festering Dark on your highest difficulty. Run this strictly on normal. It is a darkness maze that is a massive time sink and puzzle with a world boss fight at the end. It can be incredibly lethal. You fight the world boss at the end of Festering Dark. Um, if the difficulty is too high, you are silenced and suppressed. You won't be able to cast your abilities. You won't be able to attack. It's possible Blizzard has changed this, but I doubt it. And you can very easily die. I recommend unlocking Festering Dark first thing on any fresh character as soon as you are Torment 1 ready. Um, Drop the difficulty to normal. Make sure you don't have any treasure breaches or pranksters on you, and go to Festering Dark. When I say prankster, I just want to clarify I'm not talking about Undercity tributes. Mythic pranksters actually exist in the season. I need to put a video up about it, but I have gotten a mythic prankster via an escalation sigil on the last tier of the escalation prior to Astaroth. So when 3 affixes were appearing. It was really cool. Mythic Prankster Dungeon has a Frederick in it, and Frederick is accompanied by 2 or 3 other goblins. It's not that great. You only get 1 mythic plus Frederick's Resplendent Spark bag, also containing 3 runes, but it exists in the game. But so just to clarify, your mythic tributes are not what I'm talking about for mythic pranksters. I'm talking about the dungeon itself. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, when you have nightmare or dungeon sigils, whether they're on your character, they're in your inventory, and I think this is account wide, all of your sigils get wiped, even on characters, as soon as you log into a character that's on normal through penitent, or swap the difficulty to normal or penitent. All of your sigils decay into lower stuff. Any of the specific, so Vile Splendor is going to turn into Gold Reserve. Wisdom is going to turn into Herodric. There are some things that turn into Dungeon Delve. Shrines are not affected. Obols, to my knowledge, aren't effective. Actually, shrines might be effective now. Blizzard has pushed some hotfixes, and I haven't tested the shrines lately. You can't save your wisdoms. If you have a specific reserve, like a sapphire reserve, this is going to decay into a gem reserve. If you have a ruby reserve, switching the difficulty is going to decay it into a gem reserve as well. These are no longer doing. During release week, you were getting 40 fragments for the rubies. Blizzard only intended you to get 10 across the board. Skulls were doing 15. Topaz were doing 10. I think Emeralds were doing 25 or 30. So I was running any reserve that I got right from the get-go. Now I only bother to do them in uh, escalating dungeons. And the interesting thing is when you do anything in an escalating dungeon, the good fix, as I call it, um, won't be impacted. So what do I talk about the good fix? Well, on this, the good fix is the equipment delve. That's the good affix. And the bad fix, the bad affix is hunters. So there's that. And one last little tidbit about dungeons. If you're running Obol Reserve or Gold Reserve, I haven't tested this on any of the gem reserves or the material reserves. When you get a bad fix with Dark Omen, let's see if I can find one. Dark Omen is going to force spawn at least one Butcher and at least one Exfall, and sometimes you'll get both. Here we go. Sapphire Reserve, Dark Omen. This place is not right. Someone or something stalks you here. If you run an Opal or Gold Reserve with a bad fix Dark Omen attached to it, which is very easy to do if you um, are escalating, and in the Nightmare Dungeon tree, you go straight down the middle. You take double boss revive. You take additional escalation sigils. Be mindful when you go down this middle tree. You're granting +1 monster power, so your Nightmare dungeons are going to have better loot. They're also going to be more difficult. Just bear that in mind if you're just starting T12 and you're not playing an S tier build. Branching pathways. For branching pathways, there are several conditions that must be met or you bug it out. You must have party leader, be in the boss room when the boss dies, not when it engages, just when it dies. And then you will spawn 2 additional portals. I haven't tested if this works party-wide. If someone else has lead, but you're in the boss room when it dies, you'll still spawn those additional portals. But if not, it bugs out. Also, if you have this and you kill the boss too close to the wall, you risk not spawning your portals in the dungeon. There is a chance and this also works for pits, you can avoid this bug by not killing the boss by the wall, but also not standing near the wall. If the boss dies on a wall and you run to the center of the room, there's a chance this bug will not occur and the portals will still be able to spawn around you. I haven't been able to replicate this bug a ton of times, but as I figured out what was causing it, I was able to remedy the situation. I recommend if you're doing the escalation stuff that, anyone who's likely to be the first kill and be in the boss room has this power. I also recommend everyone being at least 2 points into the sigils, and your fastest person has escalation, and then other people can go down to Nemesis or Fearless Conviction or Greed is Good. I've actually done Goblin's Retreat. I did it on a T10 finally because a friend invited me to it. I am woefully unimpressed with Greed is Good. I could be wrong. Maybe I need to experience it more. I don't really think that this tree is all that great compared to what you give up. All right, the next thing I want to go over is, sorry this was so deep into the video. What strongholds you need to do? You're going to need, I think, 1 from each zone. So let me try and go over them. Festering Dark. Actually, you're going to need 2 in the hunt. You're going to need Chikuk. You're going to need... Ooh, I don't think it's any of those. You're going to need the Ruins of Karahisu. You're going to need Melnuk. You're going to need Core Dragon. You're going to need Onyx Watchtower. And you're going to need Mordrain Lodge. So, to go over that list again, in reverse order, Mordrain Lodge, Onyx Watchtower, Core Dragon, Melnok, it doesn't hurt to get Crusader's Monument. I don't think you need it, but it doesn't hurt. Where was I? Onyx Watchtower, Kitchuk, Festering Dark. Oh, and Almost Redoubt. I think I missed this on the first one. The easiest way to get here is to either port to Duriel's Gaping Crevasse or Denchar and just run here. It is actually safe to run from Denchar to Almost Redoubt without going to the PvP area. So if you do all of those, you will unlock every dungeon, and then your escalations will not be disrupted. The last thing I'm going to go over is just the benefits of the Nightmare Dungeon Tree. I know I put a video out on this, and I'm just going to recap on my recommendations. I am not a huge fan of the treasure breaches or the goblins, but if if you want to farm charms, first go down to branching pathways. Branching pathways will cause you to see more treasure breaches than Goblin Fall. It's possible that Blizzard has fixed this, but I've done about 10 to 14 treasure breaches so far this season, and they're all because, well, they're mostly because of branching pathway. Sometimes I get one, and sometimes a buddy gets one, and sometimes I buy a run. But the runs really aren't worth buying, in my opinion. What you're going to be farming with this blue side of the tree, the goblins are going to be dropping lots of charms. There's a certain type of goblin that drops 2 to 3 set charms and has a high chance to drop a unique charm. When you select the goblin path, you're opting to farm into charms. But do not opt into this right away. You're going to need so much from this middle pathway, and so many of your treasure breaches are going to come from branching pathways. Branching pathways maximizes your time farming escalation dungeon. If you farm a regular escalation dungeon, the good affixes and the bad affixes aren't necessarily going to be all that advantageous. But when you do branching pathways, you're going to get more double ups where you get 2 affixes that you want, and you're more likely to see those paired with bad omen, which is a bad affix that you want. To give you guys an idea of the numbers, when I kill the butcher or Xfall on T12, I will normally get about 300 to 400 obols per chest. The boss at the end is going to drop about 2,000 to 3,000. It feels about like 2,500. I've never counted. I just know it is a lot. If you get a double boss at the end of an obol reserve or gold reserve, both bosses are going to deluge you in gold and obols. And I need to test out material reserves and the gem reserve types in that. I've done it a bunch of times, but I need to test it to know for sure just exactly what we get. And then Xfall and Butcher are going to drop somewhere between 1,500 and 2,500 obols, or a large amount of gold, and possibly other things. So if by doing the branching pathways, you will see the bad omen tied to um, your other reserves, and this is how you min max. I have a rule for obol reserve, and in an extent gold reserve, we only go to town once, and that's when we find the butcher or we find Xfall. We all go and gamble. My personal rule is that when I gamble for the first time in an obol reserve, I'm gambling weapons and amulets to minimize the amount of time in town, and I will only gamble. I try to only gamble armor when um, we're between escalations, or we're at the conclusion of an escalation and everyone is in town doing a bunch of stuff. As soon as a dungeon is over, if people have gone to town, I will take a town break, go and do that. But I prefer that we only do that town break when we all need it. When I'm playing with people who are slower than me, my expectation is that they don't waste too much time in town. My expectation of myself when I'm playing with players who are better than me, and I do find players who are better and faster at me at certain activities, or just faster at me in general, and these are called blasters. There's a gaming etiquette to it that no one really talks about, and what I do is when I'm playing with someone who's faster, I try to minimize their downtime waiting for me. And I find that when you don't do this, the best players don't want to play with you as often. So please bear that in mind. And by doing this, and by having this rule, I end up farming more resources, more stuff per hour, and it puts me into a competitive spirit and makes me play faster. So there's a net benefit to this style of play style. It's not for everybody, so just bear that in mind. And rudeness goes both ways. So if you are a slower player, try not to take offense to faster players because your your feelings towards their speed, their how fast they're going, is their feelings towards your slowness. So just remember, it's like a clashing of two different styles, and there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes I don't want to play with blasters. Sometimes I just want to chill. So bear that in mind and gauge your decisions. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because I've run hundreds of escalations so far this season, and that's just my feedback. I've I've done spreadsheets, I've crunched the numbers, and I've come to that conclusion. And so that is my recommendation for others in maximizing dungeons. Now, I do recommend considering Nemesis and Fearless Conviction. If you are tailing someone in an escalate, I like to be self-sufficient. But if you have a really good team and you have someone who's spec into branching pathways, and try not to be too selfish, or if you are, communicate. You can go 2 points down here. You can go 3 points into Nemesis. You're going to get tons of elites. You don't have to go into Nemesis right away. You can go into Fearless Conviction. Fearless Conviction will happen at rank 5. And then you can go into Nemesis, and Nemesis is going to cause you to spawn tons of elites. And there's some synergy here where you can pop a shrine, kill a bunch of elites, kill a bunch of normal things, take them with you to the next shrine, pop that shrine. Everything starts spilling out of you. You kill it again, you reabsorb the souls, and you just drag it through the entire dungeon. It's possible Blizzard has hot fixed this, so there's a delay on the reuptake. I haven't run this a ton throughout the season, and Blizzard has been hotfixing a ton of stuff in all their different activities. So bear that in mind. But this is a cool synergy. And so one of the important reasons not to die on hardcore is you really want to be down here in branching pathways for the double escalation split. You really want to be down here in Fearless Conviction, Attuned Primordial Dust. Let me show you what that reagent is. You have two types. You have enhanced primordial dust. This is for making uniques. And then you have attuned primordial dust. This is how you're going to re-roll your uniques. So when you get to a stage of the game where you want to farm your BIS uniques off of bosses and gamble them and transition to endgame, this is how you go about doing it. You're gonna farm an item with a lot of good stats on it. You're going to fix the aspect so that it's max. Blizzard has implemented some sort of enhanced RNG for this. It usually happens by the third, but if not the third, then the fifth. There are some outliers, but on this character, I have Pain Gorgers equipped. Pain Gorgers can only do 1 of 5 rolls, so Pain Gorgers usually don't fight me that much. Shard of Verithiel, I honestly don't have a ton of negative experiences rolling perfect shards on this character either via this recipe. But if that's what you want to farm or that's the stage of the game you're in, this is how you do it. And Blizzard has nerfed regular Nightmare Dungeon sigils. So the obols, I believe the gold, I believe the materials, I've noticed definitely the gems. Blizzard wants you doing escalation sigils and benefiting from branching pathways. So it's really important not to die on a character to build the tanky. I would honestly recommend delaying T12 to guarantee that your character doesn't die because there's a lot of dangers in T12 hardcore. I watched a ton of characters die on T12 hardcore. I actually gimped my paladin early on T12 hardcore to kill a little bit slower and to be less effective in groups, and the trade-off was being unkillable. And like I can show you my paladin's tree real quick. Um, This will be the last thing in the video, and then I'll wrap it up. All right, here we go. We're getting in game. So my whispers are complete. My pit is complete. My Inferno Horde is, of course, at 3 to 7. You'll have to get Inferno Horde to 7 to 7 to get the last thing on your war plan. Inferno Hordes aren't so bad in a group, and everyone is spec'ing to the left or the middle. My lair bosses are almost done. Lair bosses is a very important tree to complete. You definitely want to go down the middle, then you want to go down the left. This is going to increase the monster power of the bosses. You'll get 2 chests, and you'll maximize your chance for the escalation portals. I think Blizzard has nerfed the escalation portals. I don't see Ultimate Nemesis nearly as much, but Undercity is done, Helltide is done, Nightmare Dungeon is done, Whispering Tree of Whispers is done. When I go into now that I'm ranked 7 on a Nightmare Dungeon on my Paladin, I get to benefit from maximize escalation, tons of elites, which actually scares me because, if you spit out a elite pack with poison or fire bombs on the ground, you need to be very careful about that. And then Fearless Conviction. So when I go into an escalation, I'm now farming attuned primordial dust and everything else. I don't have to pick. If you're farming attuned primordial dust, you're gonna have to accept that some of your escalations are gonna not be the juiced version, or you're gonna have to find someone you can party with who's willing to spec into this. So the benefit of getting to rank 7 and not dying is you can farm multiple things at once. If you look at my health tide tree, you'll notice I'm not spec'ing to the butcher. The butcher can absolutely kill you. I don't want to lose this paladin. This paladin is an immortal. If I had a truly immortal character, I absolutely would spec into this, but I'm not doing half bad. My threat level is going to increase pretty quickly. I get tons of I get too many cinders. I probably should spec out of ashes to ashes and into hated foe. Hated foe means you're just going to get more experience because the monster power of the monsters you're farming is higher. I'm getting Wrath and Rot, which means my pings of Duriel and the maggots are just spawning and giving me tons of experience. And then I have Hell's Prize. I have the big chests. These chests, by the way, are fantastic for bases. So when you reaching rank 6 or 7 in Helltide, so you can start doing Duriel and well, yeah, honestly, you only need rank 5, but it sucks so much giving up Tainted Shrines. Tainted Shrines really kicks it off so nicely. But the point is, on Helltides, you want to have a character that you can farm on that you can double dip. You're not just going to Helltide for experience. You're also going there for bases to craft your gear, and Hell's Prize hat because it's dropping so much loot. The chance of finding a max aspect for your codex is much higher. Anyhow, that is a lot of information. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for staying through this video for so long. And if you appreciated the information, please help me out and like and subscribe. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.